So there's a lot of self-promotion gurus out there. There's a lot of people dealing with the topic of art marketing. Many of them are the kinds of webinars that they're really just harvesting your email address, and they spend 20 minutes telling you what they're going to share with you, and they never actually share anything with you until the very end. So this is not that. This is me just kind of starting from the beginning and outlining what you need to think about if you really want to be serious about turning monetizing your hobby and turning your art into a business. So micro business is who we are as individuals, and the term that I also use, creative solopreneur. So basically anybody who is freelancing, who is an artist, who is a creative person, we are a micro business of one. And a micro business is defined as a business, a small business with 5 or fewer employees, and certainly 0 employees would be probably all of us. We'll talk a little bit about how to create a brand, how important a personal brand is to an artist. We'll talk a little bit about your types of customers, types of promotional efforts, how to budget your time and money to actually find the time to stop painting and sculpting and creating and start promoting, a few tips on making action plans, and certainly I'm here to support you in any way that I can. Couple of stats, and you don't have to read all of these, but I'm a little bit of a geek for statistics. And for me, it's sort of a mindset shift, because as artists, we want to sell our work, but we may not consider ourselves as a small business owner, as someone who actually, you know, needs to put a strategy and a plan into action. And so I like sharing a few of these stats because it kind of helps you understand the bigger picture. So the global art market, huge. We're part of this world. And I think it's an important thing to know just how large the art market is. They found that millennials are the most avid collectors right now, spending 6 times more on art than their parents, who are the boomers. Millennials are people that were born in the 80s, roughly in the early 90s. And nearly half of those people are buying online. So that's going to be a key thing that we'll talk about. Art fairs, which of course during COVID have disappeared, but they'll come back. The art fairs have grown tremendously in the last few years and become much more central to the art market. And what's interesting about this statistic is that 35% of sales that are coming out of art fairs are happening before or after the actual fair. That speaks to the relationship building. That speaks to the personal branding, and that speaks to a much larger issue than just hauling out your table and setting up shop, setting up a tent. Statistics can't capture what really drives a purchase, right? Collectors are driven by passion, and their lives are enriched in a way that we can't really capture here. But what this does is it gives you a little bit of a mindset to start thinking like a business. So again, the US, now switching gears from the art industry to just small businesses. The US has 30 million small businesses, 22 million of which are solopreneurs. 4 million of those 30 are in California, and 1 million of those 30 are in our industry of arts, and they also include entertainment and recreation in there. Now we look at, so we know what we're part of, right? We know what piece of the pie we're part of in terms of a small business. As far as social media, I put some social media stats on here because we're going to talk about that as a strategy. And it's really important to, if you're not entirely comfortable with social media, or if you're not feeling like you're using it effectively, this is going to be really important to harness. With this many people using it around the world for this many hours per day on average, and the fact that more than half are using it to research what to buy. Even before they Google something, they will look for a brand, whether it's a personal brand or a corporate brand. They'll look for it on social media first. 68% of all adults in the US are using Facebook. 90% of the millennials are active on social media, which supports the fact that they're buying more art as well, right? And the other thing that's important about social media is the referrals and the relationship building. 71% of people who have had a positive experience with a brand, whether it's a personal brand or a corporate brand, on social media are likely to recommend that brand to a friend. And of course, 91% of social media users are accessing social media via mobile. So as we think about how we're going to create an online presence for ourselves, we have to be thinking mobile. We have to be remembering that people are looking at us on a screen this big, and not necessarily on a laptop or a desktop or anything, even a device bigger than our smartphones. So the first thing to think about when you're considering self-promotion, you're considering, look, I want to sell more, I want to get myself out there more, I know there's more out there for me. You really have to think about the core goal. Are you looking to make money just to cover your costs, basically, so you can buy more paint and buy more canvas and supplies? Is it just a self-sustaining hobby? That's fine. Or do you really want to earn some supplemental income to your day job, to your retirement, to your pension, to whatever it is you're doing? And if so, how much? Or do you really want it to become your primary income? Are you really interested? Are you at that point in your life where you're really interested in it being a career? Or are you really just in it for a reputation? Maybe you're not in it to sell as much as you're in it to teach, or maybe you really want to get to that high level gallery, that 3 steps up gallery level that brings in serious collectors and big money, right? That's not me, but so you really do have to, those are the things you really want to think about first. I'm going to break down sort of the process for you into sort of these palatable chunks. So when you're thinking about your goals, you also want to think about what success means to you as an artist, because it's different for artists than it is for other small business owners. Success looks different. It's not just about dollars. It's not just about market share. It's a much more intrinsically emotional thing. When, like, what is success to you? When do you think you've made it as an artist? When do you think you're actually, doing something that makes it worth continuing to paint, continuing to create? These are just some of the things that success might mean to you or equate to you. Certainly community, we're all part of artist groups, inspiring others. We're all part of supporting each other and celebrating each other whenever we have new work. Also, being creative is a source of motivation and identity for some of us. We live and breathe it. There's no question that we have to do it. It's like breathing. And maybe success isn't just about money or just about paintings sold. So you really do need to think about that for yourself. And I'm encouraging you to think about it and actually plot it out, write it down, and really make sure because this is what's going to dictate how much work you have to do to self-promote, how much work you have to do to actually build build sales and build a reputation beyond where you're at right now. So you really have to be clear once you have your goals. What are you selling? Make really clear about that. Are you selling just original art? Are you also selling reproductions? How about finished goods, things that are printed with your art, whether it's coffee mugs or shower curtains or, clothing? Teaching, are you selling services where you're going to teach or make appearances at guilds and lecture events? Are you going to be selling kits and art supplies to go with perhaps a class, or perhaps you're really interested in licensing? A lot of artists develop lines of colors for paint companies or lines of products for paint companies that are aligned with that artist's style. So you have to be really, really clear about what you want to sell, because again, that's going to dictate how you strategize. And it's amazing how many people don't really think about this. Like, I don't know what I'm going to sell. You really need to think in terms of, do I want to sell just one thing? Do I want to have a diverse group of things? And if so, how am I going to get that message across to people and not be confusing about it? Branding, and part of what you're about, and part of how you communicate what you're about, I call it the story. But this little quip in the blue box is really important. With artists, stories sell no matter what the product is or the service. But with art, stories sell art better than anything else. And so I really encourage each of you to think about telling a story with everything you create. And you might even keep a journal about it, because every little bit of your process is interesting to somebody. It drives your passion, and it drives your buyers' appreciation and interest. And so these are just a few little tips to think about, because you're not just having this emotional experience yourself through the process and possibly the result of your work, but by sharing that with others and opening yourself up, you don't necessarily want to tell people how they should feel. You want them to feel something on their own when they see your art, but sharing how you went through it and what it means to you is a really important part of the sale and of endearing people to you, because it tells the story, and it makes that piece of art so much more dear. So think about your story and think about, this is what's going to help inform your brand. It's going to help people understand who you are right away, your style, your philosophy, your particular set of skills as an artist, the length of time you've been an artist, your own personality and interests outside of art, where you come from, and who you're connected to, and what things you struggle with. Keeping it real and being really transparent when you communicate, whether you're communicating in person in a networking event, or whether you're communicating online through posting on social media, or if you're communicating through a bio on your website, or if you're communicating with prospective galleries and jurors, trying to get your work juried into something. Keeping it real and keeping it authentic is so important, because it's very grounding, and your buyers can feel that. They can, that's the difference between buying a piece of art at Target and buying a piece of art from us, right? That is that story that's connected to it. We've talked about you and your story, and now let's talk about your prospective buyers. And again, the blue box has an important point, that people buy art for these reasons. They want beauty in their home. They want a reminder of a special experience. They want to commemorate something. Sometimes art buyers are just kind of me first kind of mentality. They want something that other people can't have. It can be a real status object. It's certainly in the when you're talking about art that's selling for the higher price points. But even if it's a $60 piece of art, a $300 piece of art, a $1,200 piece of art, people buy it for a very specific reason, and tapping into that can be, I don't want to say it's a challenge, but it's a slightly different strategy than other types of products and services. So it's so important that you create a little mental profile of your customer. Who does your art speak to? What is your style? Who does your style appeal to? And really think about the customer, like one person. Think about one man or one woman, and who are they? Do they like modern furniture, or do they like antiques? So how does your work fit in with that? And again, I apologize, I'm referring to painting because it's just easier, but I really do mean all 2D, 3D, all of your creativity, not just painting. Think about that person and who they are. How old are they? How much disposable income do they have? Where do they hang out? What's in their home? What's their family life like? And think about the person that really loves your style and your work and your approach, and really kind of hone in on who that person is, because that's going to help you communicate with that person. And even if they're a stranger to you now, but you want them to find you, and it's also going to help you understand what they want to see, and understand how to reach them. Because art is so subjective, right? I mean, people like it for such personal reasons. And you're not likely to just go viral with some sort of, magic Shark Tank object or invention, right? You have to find those people that really relate to you and your style. And it's not a logical purchase. They buy things for a very emotional reason. And at the end of the day, people buy from people, no matter what we're selling. I don't care if you're buying a refrigerator, a car, glasses, a necklace, a piece of art, whatever you're buying, you buy it because you like the people or the company that you're buying it from. There are certainly in this COVID area, we're all using Amazon probably a little too much, and there are no people involved. even the delivery drivers lobbing your box over the gate, right, and running because they have so many deliveries. So it's not quite the personal experience. But even online, if we talk about not the COVID situation, even online, you're gravitating toward the retailers that you like, toward the people that you like, toward the brands that you like. And that's, that's where you go. That's where you buy. And it is important to be aware that disposable income drives the demand for art, and you're competing when you're trying to get someone's disposable income, you're competing with so much. You're not only are you competing with another direct competition, another artist who has a similar style, but you're also competing with their money to go out to a restaurant. You're competing with their money to buy beer. You're competing with their money to go to the movies, or to go on a vacation, or to shop for new shoes. So disposable income is kind of tricky when that's what you're aiming for and competing for. So you really do have to tell your story in a way that is really compelling, and build those relationships in a way that keeps people wanting to spend on you. It's also important to understand the behavior of a buyer. And this is a very traditional marketing, this is a very marketing 101, learned it in college kind of concept, but it applies no matter who we are, as artists, as any kind of business owner. Buyers, ourselves included, go through 5 stages of behavior when considering making a purchase. And whether they're at the top of this funnel, think about it as a funnel, that the most people you can reach at the top of the funnel is developing awareness. And then as you get to fewer people in the funnel, those are the people who start to trust you, then the people who really want what you're selling. And then as you get to almost the end of the funnel, that's when you make your sale. So you're dealing with much fewer people out of this big pool of people that became aware of you. And then you're dealing with loyalty and repeat sales, hopefully. So the process of reaching and communicating with people at these different stages is different. How do you communicate with thousands of people versus how do you communicate with 4 people, right? And so it's important to kind of know what you're doing for what reasons. Like, are you just placing an ad for general awareness? Are you entering a show to connect with people who already know and love you? Are you networking in person with a group so that you can really build that repeat business and that loyalty? I happen to really love this artist that many of us know, Anna Milena. I have 3 of her pieces. I have 2 of Pat's pieces here in the room. So when you find something that you really enjoy, and you buy more of it, those are the relationships you want to work on. Personal branding is really important to understand that it's not a logo. A brand is not just your, how you format your website or how you, present yourself. A brand is someone else's gut instinct about you. And you can do things to inform your brand. And a personal brand is really important, that you do things that you have to, and it can be challenging because you have to draw these lines between your private life and your public life. Like, how much do I want to share about my private life in order to sell a painting, in order to endear people to me, in order to build relationships? But personal branding is intensely personal, and there are ways to create. I would say social media is actually one of the best ways to create a little bit of a line in the sand, so that you can be you can share, but you can do it without whatever discomfort you might have about being really personal with people you don't know. So whether it's social anxiety or whether it's just a little bit of an introvert kind of mentality, maybe you don't like to be like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. But that's kind of what self-promotion is. And you just have to do it in a way that is more about relationship building and less about boasting, right? So how people perceive you is super important, because if you're not a nice person and you create beautiful art, you still may not sell anything, or you may sell to a stranger where there's not that emotional connection. But part of the beauty of buying from local artists and buying original art is that there is some connection with the artist. Hopefully you have met that person, or you have at least a connection to that person in some way. Not all the time, but it's really nice when it happens, I think, for both parties. So you can't completely control your brand, because it is someone else's impression of you, but you can inform it. You can certainly help them build a stronger first impression and help them retain a good impression and really feel like, oh my God, I love this person, this artist, because they do this, this, and this in their personal life. They give back to their community. They work so hard. They're so innovative. They create things that just blow my mind. Or, you want those kinds of feelings to be festering out there about you. So let's talk a little bit about the types of self-promotion. And every single thing on this list is a whole other class by itself. And I am absolutely available to go on a deep dive on any of these topics. So tonight is really kind of a bird's eye view. But it's really important to consider, and I'm gonna just flash on the next screen really quick, the difference between digital methods to promote yourself and traditional methods to promote yourself. So let's go back to digital. And the reason that it's important to know the distinction is because one, typically digital takes less time, really, and traditional marketing efforts can take a little more time. But let's talk about digital. You definitely, an online presence can be achieved in a number of ways. It may or may not be a website. It may or may not include social media. I highly recommend that you have a website and a social media presence, but you can do that for $0. You do not have to spend a lot of money on a website. You can work with a free platform. You can create something very basic, not that includes e-commerce, but certainly that is an enhanced calling card and a gallery of your work, because there's value in being really easy to find. And it's certainly, you want to own your real estate. LisaFulmer.com, picked it right up. I think, as soon as you own your real estate online with whatever your .com is, or some of the other suffixes that are out there now. There's .art, and obviously there's .net and .info, but there's even more creative ones, .us, .art, .biz. There's quite a few. So even if your name is common and the .com is taken by somebody else, there are still ways to get your name and or whatever your moniker is purchased and owned for yourself. Social media is king. And the reason it's king is because it is the world's largest playground, and it is the world's largest public park. It's where the majority of people hang out. It's certainly where people look for inspiration, education, researching, information, news. And the statistic earlier that showed how millennials are buying so much more art than baby boomers are, that's really important to think about, because I think many of us are familiar with artists are clearly retired, because who has time to paint when you're working a full-time job, right? And unless you're a full-time working artist. But if it's a hobby or a side hustle, who has time for that? And so it's really important to think about that your customers aren't always your peers. And if your peers, I'm in my late 50s, if my peers are also that age and older, in terms of, people who are retired and fully enjoying and immersing themselves in a hobby and possibly even a supplemental income, your peers have a purpose for sure. They keep you motivated, they keep you championed. And yes, we do buy each other's stuff all the time. But you really want to think about the statistics that when you find them, about who's really doing the buying, who's got the serious disposable income and the serious desire to build a home for themselves and build a personality for themselves inside their walls, right? And art is a big part of that for anybody up and coming, no matter if they're in their 20s, 30s, 60s, or 70s. That is an important part of who they are, and you want to tap into that. And you want to be aware of the age. And so if your style is such that it's attractive to younger people, then you need to pay attention to which social media platforms those people are hanging out on. So if you really think that it's the career, it's the heavy duty, serious career people in the middle of their career, right? They're in their 40s maybe. then maybe you need to hang out on LinkedIn. If you think the people that really dig your stuff are younger than that, then hang out on Instagram. You might even try shaking your hiney on TikTok. Or if you are looking for more of that middle range retired person, the baby boomers, then Facebook is your go-to. Younger people, YouTube. You want to, and actually that's pretty much all ages. The demographics have really flattened out. They're kind of even there, but each social media platform does have a slightly different demographic, and so you want to appeal to whatever demographic you think is your target based on your style. Email is a great tool for, especially if you're selling products that are reproductions or finished goods, or classes, things that have a deadline. You're appearing at retreats, you're doing, combination online classes with other artists, whatever. Gathering an email list and having and actually using an email service to communicate with people on a regular basis. That's where you can be really commercial with your messaging too. It can be a much more buy me message, special offer, exclusive kind of content message than social media. You don't want to be too commercial on social media. You want your posts to be much more about creative process, about your humanity. You want your posts to be about just the passion that is behind what you're producing, and you want it to be about everything else that your fans are interested in. So if you have a whole bunch of people who also love kayaking, talk about kayaking, because that's just going to endear them to you, especially if you do a lot of scenic landscapes, riverside, right? So look for those adjacent interests amongst your target base of collectors, and talk about those interests and get in and listen. Social media is also a lot about listening and seeing what people are interested in, and watching what they post. So then the other digital methods are, search ranking. That's a whole other topic, but it's a really important reason to have a website or a blog, because it does allow people to find you by just typing in, I need an artist who specializes in custom pet portraits in Concord. Then they'll find you if you are set up to rank with those search terms. And that's not a hard thing to do. It's just a matter of publishing on a blog and keeping content flowing. That's the other reason why a lot of artists, especially younger artists, are really gravitating toward just selling and kind of owning their online persona just on social media alone. And that's great. Social media has really sort of become a website in a lot of ways. Facebook is really strong with e-commerce solutions. Even Instagram is as well. But you don't own that airspace. So anything you post, all your photos and anything you post on social media doesn't really belong to you, and it's not searchable on the internet. The only thing that's searchable on the internet is your profile. If you search on Pinterest, Lisa Fulmer, my Pinterest page will come up, woefully neglected for years, but Instagram, Lisa Fulmer, that'll pop right up. But any of the posts, any of the stories I tell, any of the pictures, none of that is searchable. It's searchable on your website, and you want to own that real estate and then propagate it on social media, ideally. But to start, just start, if no place else, on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, and just start sharing and talking and building a following and figuring out what content appeals to people. And that's enough to start. And you can start in any one of these places. By no means am I saying you have to do all of this, but these are the different tactics, different things to consider. Event calendars, there are different kinds of directories that you can be listed in that may have a minor influence on your ability to be found. And certainly there are podcasts that interview artists. There are other publications that feature artists. I mean, I feature artists in my column in the local newspaper here. So you look for those opportunities, reasons to reach out to people who are influential in some way and can talk about you and interview you and have a reason to do that. And that's certainly important if you do anything philanthropic or charitable. So all the things that you're doing are newsworthy, and those are opportunities to get your name in front of people as well. Traditional self-promotion is the stuff that we all pretty much are really familiar and comfortable with, got to have a business card. You never know who you're going to run into that needs to remember your name, and you just hand it to them. Again, I'm not taking COVID into account right this minute. Certainly a postcard or a brochure, if you're in a show, you know, having those handy to send out or to hand out. Networking is key. You know, if you, like, I belong to the Concord Art Association belongs to the local Chamber of Commerce, and we try to keep a presence going there. Certainly joining your local art associations all around the county, all around the Bay Area is a tremendous networking opportunity. Being part of exhibits and vending events, someday we'll get back to that. You know, getting involved with the local newspapers, and then word of mouth. Nothing beats word of mouth. I mean, you know, if you've got a handful of champions who talk about you, that nothing beats it. So the other part of self-promotion is nurturing your networks. And so you have so many different networks as an artist. You have people who have bought from you, people who might buy from you, you have people who support you, peers, you have influencers who might talk about you. You have fans who just love your work, and maybe they've never bought from you before and they don't talk about you much, but they always hit that like button. And you have people who inspire you and keep you motivated to work, and people that you like and that you want to talk about and celebrate to your followers. And then of course you have colleagues in your work, whether it's your non-art related work or your art related work. There are people who are talking about you specifically because of a skill set that you have, or they're colleagues, and they're not necessarily your friends or your champions. And so these networks all need to be nurtured so that they grow. And you do that in a variety of different ways. You can do that with something as simple as sharing posts, making sure that you're following them and liking their stuff. You can do that personally. You can do that, through these kinds of groups, certainly through online groups. There are ways to nurture peers through art challenges. Instagram has so many different monthly challenges and yearly challenges for artists of all different skill levels and styles. And there are ways to connect with people of like mind. Nurturing all those networks just helps keep your name out there, helps people understand your work and see what you're doing, and helps make you feel better and more confident about yourself, and get past any discomfort that you have about promoting yourself and actually getting your stuff out there. These are all the people who will help keep you alive in that regard. As far as who has time for all this? Okay, the aforementioned 10 slides, who has time for all this? So I usually recommend just starting with some sort of consistency. And again, this is based on what your original goals are. If you're doing this just as a side hustle, you just want to make a few bucks so that you can keep buying fresh paint, or maybe it's something that you actually do need to help you pay the rent or pay the mortgage, right? You actually do need to you need to sell one painting every month or 5 paintings every month, or whatever that number is, in order to really warrant continuing to do it. So depending on where that goal is, you budget your time. Just start small. Start with 15 to 30 minutes a day, or if you can't touch it daily, a couple 3 hours a week. Maybe you just do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays, And when I say do it, I mean any of the aforementioned tactics and things that involve promoting yourself, and whether it's writing a blog post, posting on Facebook, attending a meeting, applying for shows, paying the money to actually pitch a tent and sell something, whatever that effort is, start small and just kind of try. It's just like exercising, we all hate to do it, but in order for it to work, we have to be religious about it, right? There are apps that can help you, but I'm a big fan of the to-do, very manual to-do list, a very manual date book, whatever works for you. And I will say that maintaining databases is so important. Maintaining a list, whether it's on the computer, in a spreadsheet, in a journal, but ideally it should be digital. But people you meet, calls for artists that happen regularly, or at least organizations that post call for artists on a regular basis, shows that happen regularly, members of, you know, the press, people who blog and write for newspapers and host podcasts, and organizations that you belong to or that you want to follow or think about belonging to, and really kind of maintain those lists, because that's going to help you plan ahead a little more. And again, it's going to help you feel connected when you have those days where you're blocked and you're not feeling connected. You know that you've got these 4 organizations that always have something new on their Facebook page or on their YouTube channel, or you can set aside the newsletter that you just got and go back and really read it and enjoy it and dig into it. And or you can look ahead and be like, oh, you know what, every April there are these 3 organizations that have a spring show. I should get ready for that, and that's coming up, right? So maintaining those lists, I call it, those databases, it's more than just an email list. It's really a working list of the things that are helpful to remember that happen on a routine basis. As far as the money that it might cost to do all this, it can be pretty damn close to free. And there's lots of ways to pick and choose, to kind of cherry pick the different strategies and just work on the things that cost more time than money. But if you think about, let's say you decide that you want to earn $1,000 a month, one way or another, speaker fees, selling paintings, selling prints and greeting cards, whatever that looks like. I need to earn $1,000 a year, and I need to sell, and I know that I'm producing enough work. I know that that equates to X number of, you know, pieces, you know, per year. So I just recommend, and this is a recommendation that big businesses use as well, anywhere from 3 to 12% of your annual sales goal, spend that on marketing efforts. Whether that means that you pay fees to join groups, or you pay fees to register for shows, or you pay to boost a Facebook post and get more traction for something you're promoting, or you pay for your business cards, or you pay for, you know, membership at the Chamber of Commerce, or whatever that is. All of these items here, and even credit card fees. You know, let's say you are working with your own e-commerce platform, or maybe you're working with, I don't know, say mine, maidenconcord.com, or you're working with Etsy. And there are fees, you know, there are commission fees. There are, if you're doing your own e-commerce, you have to pay a 3% credit card fee to accept credit cards, but I highly recommend you do that. It's totally worth it. So, and even preparing your taxes at the end of the year. So all of that money, think about it, just create a budget for yourself as a percentage of your sales goal. And you may not hit it, it may change, but at least it gives you a place to start. And it gives you something like, okay, I know I need to have this much money dedicated for these. And I started real low, because most of us are in this really small, you know, frame of reality. And so you start real low, and then you build it from there. And if something works, you spent money on it and it works, then great, do it again and increase your budget a little bit. It can be a fluid thing, but this is a place to start. And then the last little bit here is about making a plan. And I highly encourage that you take the planning part seriously. I think we've all seen that when we plan a vacation, you know, things work. Now, I'm a big fan of just getting in the car and driving and stopping wherever we stop. I think that's fun too. But when it comes to marketing and self-promotion, having a plan, it's nice to be mostly proactive about what you're doing to promote yourself, and then still have room to be reactive. Something's going to drop in your lap, right? Somebody's going to call you and say, oh my God, I want to interview you for my column. Or, oh my God, you know, I want you I want to commission you to do this thing for a trade show I'm going to be in. I need this thing for the back of the booth. I mean, things like that will happen, and they'll drop in your lap potentially. And so you want to be prepared for those that maybe you weren't thinking about. So you need wiggle room for that, but planning helps you be as proactive as possible so that you don't tear your hair out and go crazy. You can schedule Facebook posts. You can schedule Instagram posts. You can do a lot of work in advance to prepare and not feel like you're, you know, like you're attached to your cell phone every day, because, I gotta post something. There are ways you can, it's an important, being spontaneous and real time is an important part of engaging in social media, but it doesn't have to be the whole thing. You can plan a lot of content. And again, that's a whole other seminar topic. But just be realistic about your goals. Be realistic about how much work you can actually produce. And boy, if you end up selling more than you can produce, that's a really good problem to have. And I'm sure you can figure out how to make that work. But just be realistic and don't feel like you have to, hit the moon. It's really good to brainstorm ideas with someone, a friend, another colleague, and just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is the angle I think my art will take. Who do you think is attracted to my art? Who do you think would really dig this in their home? Like, maybe I'm not seeing it. Really good to like have that sort of working document, again, whether it's in a journal or whether it's online somewhere, where you just throw ideas. Oh, I really want to do this someday. Throw it on there, throw it on there, throw it on there. And then when you have some time, like, I really need to shake things up, I really need to do something different, then you can go to that list and be like, oh yeah, I almost forgot. I really wanted to try this show, or I really wanted to try, this organization, or I really wanted to try painting with this medium and doing something completely different. I really wanted to try promoting myself to companies that license work from artists to have a line of products. And then you just, it's like it's any parent, any family organizer, any home, anybody who manages their household and has had a job, no matter what kind of job it is, how to have a to-do list, how to create a timeline, and how to manage deadlines. And so it is really helpful if you're going to be submitting to shows every month and you kind of know when they're happening, then you have that in your calendar, and that, oh, I really want to submit to this show and I really need to produce something new for it, and I need to allow myself time to do it. And then really pay attention to the results of your efforts. If you really decided, okay, I am going to post on Facebook every single day, I'm going to join this challenge on Instagram, and I'm going to dedicate, this many hours per week to increasing my social media presence and increasing the consistency of how frequently I post, and increasing the amount of time I spend celebrating other people and liking their stuff. And this is what I'm going to do. And then pay attention to it. How many followers did you get in the months that you really were religious about that? How many likes did you get? Did you see any, what did you see? And there are insights in all of the social media. That's the beauty of social media, is that it's highly measurable, and you can learn how to do that. And you can learn how to look at that. And it's pretty basic. I mean, it's really just looking at 2 or 3 things, like, oh, this post of the 17 things I posted in the last month, this one got the most hits. I wonder why. And this one, which I thought was kind of cool, like, nobody paid attention to. I wonder why. Is it because I posted it at 3 a.m. when I was, having a manic creative moment, and nobody was online? Or is it because I had like some typos? Or is it because the image wasn't really popping? Or is it because I was just the timing, like something was happening in the news and I just got lost? Like, so you start to look at how things are going, and really measuring the results, so that oh, this one really hit because it was about animals. I every time I talk about my dog, I get 1 million likes. Right now, my partner Eileen and I have been having a little contest. She posted, or I posted about her cooking, and then the next day I posted about my art. And it's like, her beef pot pie has gotten 100 likes and my art's only gotten 60. Like, every time we post about food, people are foodies, especially right now. So, it's like, what's working, and then do more of that. So that is the end of my presentation. And I do want to encourage you to find me online. I do offer 2 hours for the price of 1 for our first meeting. I do help for free with little bits and pieces if you ever want to email me or message me. Hit me up on Facebook if you haven't already.